Greetings, my friends! This is Yannis Kombatsiadis with the Apocalyptic Nights, and this is a review of this. This is the Trench Hawk of cold steel. So, what first impressed me when I decided to get it is... it was a couple of things, actually. It was the shape that it has, that in my opinion it's quite beautiful. It looks very nice. It looks very much like a weapon, like a real weapon. Looks a bit tactical as well, although a bit strange for a commando of today to carry a hatchet with him. But this one is actually pretty lightweight. It's very lightweight, and for that reason alone I could imagine somebody carrying it in a lot of circumstances that normally you wouldn't carry an axe in. But let's start from the beginning. Of course, one of the obvious things that makes this unique is the sheath. The sheath design is quite ingenious. You put the spike in first, then you close it like that. The strap has to not be in the way, and then you secure it like so. Now it's totally secure. This is not going to go off. It's impossible because, you know, the spike is inside the sheath this way, and this way the blade is inside the sheath. And so, I mean, this strap is holding it here. This part of the axe is not sharp, so this is not going to be cut anytime soon. And if it is, I mean, even if it happens a long time after, you know, you first use it, then you can just replace this thing. It's just, you know, a nylon strap. It's got a lot of holes on the sheath for, you know, passing strings through it and then securing it in different types of belts, you know, or backpacks or whatever you want. And then another thing that is different, if you compare this to many other axes, one other thing that is pretty different is the handle. The handle is made of polypropylene, which is pretty much unbreakable. You cannot break it, really, like if you try to break it by banging it somewhere, it's not going to break. It's nothing like a wooden handle that is eventually going to break. But this one, of course, it's easier to damage this by trying to cut it. There is a guy who actually made some tests, you know, with polypropylene bookends and wooden bookends. The wooden bookends were much easier to smash. The polypropylene bookends were pretty much unsmashable. But then when he was trying to cut them with a katana, the wooden bookends were much stronger against those cuts, while the polypropylene bookends were getting cut, you know, with the first cut. However, you're not gonna, you know, probably you're not gonna encounter something that sharp that's gonna cut through your, you know, polypropylene handle at any time in the nature or wherever you take it. So that's pretty much okay. And especially since polypropylene, you know, if it gets damaged, if it gets wounded, so to speak, then you can just use a lighter, melt it a bit, and it's like brand new, you know, you restore it completely. So the axe head and the handle are secured together with those bolts and nuts. It's very special shape. You have to see this. They're like this. And this you can open with an Allen, like a usual standard Allen. But this one in the back, I'm not sure what you can use to do that. But of course, the thing, you don't need to do it because this is inserted into the polypropylene, is inserted in, so it's secured, and then you can just twist this one to open and close it. It's pretty secure. I will tell you about the use I've had with this in the past, so you will see it's pretty secure. This thing secured very well, and yeah, it had a lot of stress until now, and it didn't come loose yet. It didn't break. It doesn't need any tightening yet. It's perfectly fine so far. Now, you might have noticed that I left the most important part for the end. The most important part, of course, is the blade. We remove the sheath. This is the axe blade. I really like the shape. I really like the spike in the back. I used this axe a lot in my last camping in Sweden. I used it really much, and also my last trip in Norway I also used it with a Norwegian guy where we threw this axe into a lot of you know, dead wood. And I'm a beginner at hatchet throwing, and I have to say that this spike in the back makes hatchet throwing so much easier because it would either stick in the tree this way or it would stick in the tree this way. But this meant that you have pretty much double the chances for a random sticking of the axe on the tree, on the target. The only chance that it wouldn't stick would be if it hit totally like that, totally flat this way, or sometimes that it hit totally flat this way, because if it hits a little, you know, if it hits here, for example, like even if it has some inclination and it hits, then what happens is because it hits the target, it makes a lever and boom, it still sticks. So most of the times it was sticking, no matter how you threw it. You just had to throw it very hard at the target and it would take care of the rest. The blade isn't too thin. Like you can see here how thin it is, how thick. I don't know, maybe you cannot, but yeah, it's not too thick. It's like 1 centimeter thick, maybe. However, it's much thinner. It's got like a nice bevel that, you know, it gets much thinner going towards the blade, and it doesn't have any corners. It doesn't go like, you know, like that. It has a smooth sharpening, smooth bevel, and I really like that. I really like that in axes, knives, everything. I like this kind of smooth sharpening edge, sharpened edge. It helps make it very easy to stick this into anything, like a tree or you know, anything you want to cut. It really makes it easy. It also can take a good edge. It can become really sharp. But apparently, the steel that it's made of isn't the best. And of course, it makes sense because this axe is not like a 200 euro or dollars axe. It's a much cheaper one. And for the money, it's very, very nice. But you know, I really wish it could keep a better edge, because after a few strikes, it's gonna lose its edge. Like, I haven't sharpened it now since my last trip, and check this out. You can probably see the dents. And those dents are from the axe hitting some rock when it fell on the ground or something like that. But they really, I mean, I had other axes. I famously mistreat my axes sometimes. But this was too easy to injure. Like, for example, this is from a rock, and it's on the thick part. You know, it's not on the blade. It's on the thick part of the blade. And check this out. I mean, it just hit a rock there, and it's 1 centimeter thick. It's not even an edge there. It's just a corner, and it got that damage. So it is an axe that will need a lot of sharpening, and I don't normally have a problem with that. But with the more sharpening you give it, the more it loses some of the edge becomes smaller and smaller. The blade becomes smaller because you take material, you know, to make it sharp again. You just sharpen it behind the edge that it now has. This means you lose a little material all the time. In the end, you end up, I don't know, I mean, if I do it too many times, maybe I end up with an axe like this big. That would be funny, definitely. And the back spike is nice because it keeps the point much more. It can take much more abuse than the blade, which becomes, you know, razor sharp if you sharpen it properly, but then it's not a very hard steel, and it loses the edge very easily. But the back keeps it better because it's not so razor sharp. It's basically a spike. It still can actually get damaged though. Mine it actually hit a rock at some point, and I had to sharpen it back to a spike. I think it looks quite nice though, and the damage that it took back then was minor because, you know, with the rock. So you can count on the spike to be more durable than the blade itself. Another thing that I like about this axe, apart from the fact that it's lightweight, very cheap for, you know, what it is, and pretty durable shaft, and quite good blade for the money. It's this shape here, this shape that you can see. It's perfect for, you know, holding it from here, and that's pretty important for bushcraft because you might need to, you know, clean a piece of wood, like from the bark, or you know, just make any kind of cutting work that you need to slide the axe on a piece of wood. That's a perfect grip, and it really helps with your grip here. Of course, Cold Steel markets this grip as a fighting grip, that you can fight like this, which could be possible, but not recommended to have an axe and fight like this. But anyway, you know, cold steel. The one use I can think of that is pretty nice for this grip is if you want to cut something, like not use it to push, but apart from, you know, cleaning a wood and all that stuff, not use it to punch or something, but just to cut. You know, if you cut like this, it's pretty handy, because if you hold it here and you cut, then it's not, the control and the perfection of the movement is not so big, like it's not so perfect. It's pretty imperfect. But then if you hold it here and then you cut like this, it cuts pretty nice. It's like you're holding a knife pretty much. So another good thing about this axe is that the blade is oxidized, and this way even though it's a carbon steel blade, it becomes pretty rust proof at the areas where it keeps the oxidizations, because, you know, if you sharpen it, then it's not rust proof anymore. I mean, if you sharpen the edge, this covering is lost, and then it gets oxidized and rusts. That's the oxidization of the axe. But then you can sharpen it again and it loses the rusty part, and you know, you get a clean edge again. You just need to be oiling it and protecting it at the points where you have removed this black coating. Minor detail, it's got a hole here in the shaft, so you can pass, you know, some kind of cordon, some lanyard or whatever you want, paracord, and hang it from somewhere, like hang it upside down if you want. Although it's not the best way of carrying an axe. The best way, in my opinion, to carry an axe and have it readily available is in a belt ring. It's basically a simple big ring that you wear on your belt. You have on your belt, and then you pass the axe through the ring, and it's hanging like that, and then you can just grab it from the top and pull it out at any moment very, very fast. That's, in my opinion, the best way to carry it. Of course, if you're doing that, make sure you have this on, because if you don't, you might find yourself receiving injuries by nobody else than yourself, because, you know, this will be banging against your thigh, and this spike is pretty pointy. Finally, you shouldn't get this axe if you plan to use it for splitting wood, because a very thin axe with this thin blade that doesn't wedge out significantly like a normal axe is not going to split any wood, because, you know, the splitting of wood is not really a cutting action. You're not really cutting the wood in two when you split it. It's basically cutting and then you know, pushing it aside, pushing the two pieces away from each other, like wedging through them and then pushing them aside, and this way you split the log into two. So if you use this to split wood, trust me, I've tried it. It's never going to work. It's just not made for this, and I mean, if you made it like that, it would sacrifice some of its cutting power and wouldn't bury so deep. Like it buries this deep sometimes in a piece of wood. I mean, it buries pretty much to the handle in a piece of wood, and it wouldn't do that if it was becoming, you know, this thick. But then it would split wood. It would be also much heavier. If you get a hatchet, it's heavier than this. It's pretty much like 50% more weight. This is lighter, so this is useful for stuff like fighting and cutting things, but not really for splitting wood. Forget about it if you want to split wood in your camping trip. So this is a really good axe. It has a couple of drawbacks that I told you. I mean, no tool is perfect for all jobs, and if it's very good for most jobs, then automatically it becomes more expensive, because, you know, you need better materials and all that. So this is good for the price it has. It's really useful and good. Beautiful as well, very durable. The blade could be more durable, but yeah, what do you expect with, you know, this kind of price range? And I have enjoyed this axe a lot. I never regretted buying it. Unlike other cold steel products, that there were some that I regretted buying, but not this axe. This axe was really good. So I would recommend it if you want to get something to use in your camping trip, or if you want to just have a nice light weapon, and weapons are allowed in your country. And you know, for just cutting basically purposes, or throwing a tomahawk, it's really good for fun also, like throwing it into woods. Again, if in the country you're doing it, it is allowed. But I wouldn't recommend it if you want to have something that can split wood, or if you want to have something that doesn't need sharpening after every use. So I hope you found this review interesting. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. And also, it would be very nice if you subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff, so you will be up to date with anything new I come up with. So until the next time, from me and my little friend here, bye bye and take care.